People who quit their jobs on the first day, what was your outta here moment? Deleted. Not technically first day but second day. When I was 20 or so I got hired to be a temporary floor member for Forever 21 during the holiday season. My training started a week before Black Friday, so the store was already kind of in chaos. On my first day of training I walked in, and the floor manager gave all the new hires a tour showing us the facility and layout of the store. After this I was assigned to a veteran floor member to shadow and get an idea of what my job was, and what my duties would be. As soon as I was assigned the manager dipped never to be seen again. An hour and a half into my shift my shadowee got an emergency family call, and had to take off for a week. When this happened I found some other floor manager, and explained the situation, and asked them who else I should shadow. The manager's response was you'll just do what you can by yourself you'll be fine. Everyone else is busy you're figured you'll okay you'll try your vertical bar. I don't know if any of you have shopped in the women year section of Forever 21, but during seasonal sales they will have multiple articles of clothing that all look almost exactly the same, but with slight differences. A white cardigan with 4 buttons that looked literally the same as a white cardigan with 5 buttons. The best part was these different items were often placed in completely separate parts of the store, and it was the job of the dressing room to return the unpurchased items to the correct section, so the employees could put them back on the shelves. Well, these employees fucking sucked, and I didn't know if they were a part of my section or not, so I'd spend a ridiculous amount of time trying to find where they go, before realizing wait this isn't even my section I've checked literally every rack so I'd put it back on the sorting rack, and move to the next item. More than 50% of the stuff I was told to reshelf wasn't my section. I just did as best as I could, and got ready for my next miserable day. The next day I come in, and the store manager pulls me to her office, and tells me how slow I was the day before, and if I want to keep working here I need to be very fast. I explained my lack of training and unfamiliarity with the store, and she told me if I didn't know where the clothes were in sections I should come in my free time and memorize where stuff was at. I spent the rest of my shift putting clothes in random fucking places and never came back for a third shift. Fuck that place and their management. I used to work at a craft store as a cashier, but quit when I moved. Ended up going back a couple years later to make some extra cash, but this time in the framing department. During the interview they swore up and down I would only ever be a backup cashier, because I said I refused to have full cashier shifts. First shift after interview is listed as framing, but I'm put on cash, and told that actually most of my shifts would be cash, since they had found someone else for framing. I spent the next 6 hours giving everyone who came to my register 20% off of everything, and then never went back. My first internship was at a Brazilian teen detention center. It's akin to a prison, but Brazilian law has some distinctions between crimes committed while as an adult or as a teenager. Teens go through socio-educational measures. I was walking through a courtyard with my supervisor when some doctors came running flailing their arms and screaming while officers came running from the opposite direction. I get pulled by my supervisor who just tells me to run back to our office. These teens as young as 12 had escaped their block. A few minutes later an officer comes knocking on the doors of the offices and yelling for everyone to run outside because a fire had broken out. Some of the teens had set mattresses on fire in their cells. I didn't really know about. My teacher did. She hadn't even been there that day, so I was forced by the university to choose another place to intern at. Oh well. Wasn't exactly the first day, but I didn't show up after the second shift. It was a rather popular cafe chain in my country. I was hired to work in the kitchen as a cook along with another senior cook. Let's put aside the fact that I had zero cooking knowledge whatsoever. The senior cook was leaving the kitchen every 5 minutes to smoke. So there I am, alone in the kitchen, orders are printing fast, and I'm standing there not sure what to do first, and the waitress comes over yelling at me to cook shit I don't have any business cooking, definitely not on my own. Later on, the senior cook told me they had at least 2 rats running around the kitchen, showed me they pooped on a plate. I never came back, and I'm glad the place got shut down. When I burned my hands all night on the 2 hot plates as a food runner, they wouldn't let me use towels to carry them and said I just had to get used to it. Nope. I was 17 and working precast concrete, refused to use a rusted to shit ladder. Supervisor called me a pussy, got up about 7 rungs before his foot went through one, heard his foot snap as he fell. I called an ambulance and walked to my car in the parking lot. I was a cashier at Lowe's during college for less than a full day. I made it through the multiple day training, but there was so much stupid shit going on I almost thought I was on a hidden camera show. All of the employees complained about how hard they had to work, while simultaneously not getting enough hours. Nobody understood why they were hiring like 4 new people. I was one of those 4. Turns out it's because they were progressing through a sexual harassment complaint that required restructuring of the store and firing of some employees. This was known to ours and explained to new hires against company policy, but wasn't known to the employees, apparently some of whom still worked there. *including the fucking person doing the training*. She was really inappropriate and said not to worry about the sexual harassment stuff, that everything would go back to normal soon enough and we wouldn't have to be so uptight. They fired her the day before I started, along with one of the cashiers who trained me. She also offered me terrible guidance for the application process. They were looking for part-time help, and 2 of the 3 days they needed help on I had off from school. I told them I could work nights most nights, but if they needed daytime help it had to be on those days. She said if I was too restrictive they wouldn't keep me on, lied to my boss about my availability to make me even more attractive than I already was wink, and told me to schmoz them a bit and I'd make it further. She said in the end it wouldn't impact anything and I'd get those days. My first week's schedule I was working mornings every day that I was in school and I wasn't given any hours on my days off. Aside from the fact that I was given 2 times the hours the position called for when other employees were shorted, my work schedule was literally impossible to consolidate with my school schedule. I only went to work on my first day to tell them I was quitting and that their application process was a fucking mess. They couldn't figure out how so much went wrong, and then they asked who trained me and everything made sense. They thanked me for at least showing up to quit, unlike the other 3 they hired, who just stopped returning their calls and no-showed their first days. On the first day of working at Amazon warehouse, the managers broke down to everyone how a 15-minute break works there. Walking to the break room is 2.5 minutes. 10 minutes of actual break, and then 2.5 minutes to go back to your stations. It took me 2.5 minutes to walk to my car and I took a forever break. My first ever job. I was 13 and I would be delivering phone books from the back of a van through people's letterboxes. So I'd be in the back of the van with the phone books and there was an older guy driving slowly while I went back and forth to the van/houses with the books. At one point the van was getting quite empty, so there was more space to move around, and we had finished the delivery in the street we were paid to deliver to, and he drove to another. While driving there he drove, let's say, aggressively, and I fell inside the back where the books were. I wasn't sitting in a seat as the van had no seats in the back. As I put my hand out to steady myself, I accidentally laid it across the portable radio that had its antenna extended, but the antenna was also broken halfway and razor sharp. It sliced the palm of my hand clean open 3 to 4 inches. I can only describe what I saw as gruesome. I said to him to pull the van over, and I needed help. He saw my hand and just threw me a plastic bag, the kind you'd get at a supermarket, and told me to wrap my hand in it. Then, He continued with the deliveries. At least he delivered the remaining books himself. I should have been taken to a hospital or at least home to my parents. I quit after that and never showed up again. As you can imagine, my parents were quite angry at him. Summer job working for a landscape architect. Got to the job site and he asked me to dig a hole in some rocky dirt. I asked for a shovel. He didn't have one. I asked for a hand spade. He didn't have one. He told me to just dig the hole with my bare hands, and then he drove off to another site, leaving me completely alone. I dug for a little bit and then said fuck this and left. Had the job specified that I needed to supply my own tools, I could, but it didn't, and I wasn't going to work for somebody that expected folks to dig through hard rocky soil with their hands. 2 times. Once I applied for and got a telemarketing job. I didn't know what it entailed. After an hour I knew it was a terrible fit. Auto-dialing people during their dinners, trying to sell them stuff they didn't want, reading a horrible script while sitting in a soulless grey cubicle. I got up, went to the manager, apologized and said it wasn't a good fit for me. He seemed understanding. Another time I attended a make easy money at this job seminar, and it turns out it was selling knives door to door. IDK if I technically quit or just noped out at the end of it. I noped out of an interview one time, thanked them at the end, and said it wasn't for me. Those interviewing, management level folks, started arguing with each other in front of me *during the interview. I figured, if this is the vibe at the management level then I sure as hell don't want to be your employee.